Welcome to the Cinemagic Preview Show. On today's episode, we'll be previewing the new indie drama, Summer of '72.
Can't get this thing done.
Nothing worse than a sticky zipper.
I appreciate that.
You're gonna dream yourself to death, son. You gotta live in the real world. What brings you to Tuscaloosa?
That young lady is not what she's seen. I'm afraid she's not very stable.
I'm not crazy.
She's not your plaything. Don't go messing with her.
Billy, you know what the word Tuscaloosa means? It's a new time now.
You're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution.
Our bodies break,
I'm fixing to make you respectable.
and the blood just spills and spills.
I believe I'm coming to an understanding.
There's gotta be
Tuscaloosa's white power elite.
And they want to keep it that way.
I think your daddy's on to us.
There's some bad stuff going on in town.
You're going to have to figure out what side of the line you stand on.
What have you done?
We're leaving.
All orderlies code red.
You crazy one? Crazy about me.
There ain't but one true path, and that's the one you want.
What will our young Cinemagic reviewers think? Hello, my name is Rosa Scott and welcome to the Cinemagic Preview Show. On today's episode, I'll be reviewing the film The Summer of '72, which stars Natalia Dyer as a young girl, Virginia, who is in an asylum in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Devon Bostick, who is a young man who's been working at the asylum over the summer, and his father actually owns the asylum, and he ends up falling in love with Virginia.
Summer of '72 is directed by Philip Harder in his directorial debut, and it's an adaptation of a novel by W. Glasgow Phillips.
To put it simply, it's a quirky, coming-of-age romantic drama set in a racially and socially tense 1970s Alabama.
The plot of this film is centered around Billy, a recent college graduate who's doing a summer job in a mental asylum where his father works as a doctor.
It revolves around a recent college graduate named Billy, who's working on the grounds of an asylum where his father works as a psychiatrist over the summer of '72. During this time, he forges a relationship with a patient in the asylum named Virginia, and the film explores how this romance evolves, as well as the difficulties Billy faces in remaining loyal to his friend Nigel, as well as his father.
This film is a love story set in Alabama, Tuscaloosa, in 1972. So the story does follow a romantic relationship between main characters Billy and Virginia.
This romance is set against a backdrop of social unrest as Billy's best friend Nigel becomes involved with a radical civil rights activist who is against Tuscaloosa's elite and the police, including Billy's father who owns the asylum.
It's a difficult film to summarise because there's just so much to unpack in the narrative. It's a romantic story about a seemingly oddly matched couple. It's about friendship, family. It examines attitudes towards mental health, and it also gives us an insight into racial tensions and police brutality.
The entirety of the film takes place in Tuscaloosa, which is a town in Alabama, and this was during the Vietnam War, so racial tensions were extremely high, and this is something that can be seen throughout the entire film.
What the film does really well is it captures the simmering racial tension in Tuscaloosa in Alabama during this period.
So the story does also highlight many issues that were present in America that are still present today, such as discrimination towards minority groups, people in same-sex relationships, interracial relationships, interracial friendships even as well, and there's the stigma towards mental health is also discussed really well in this film.
Although it is not the film's duty to educate the viewers like myself on civil rights issues, I wish there had been more involvement from Billy and a more focus on how he discovers the role that he and his father play in the elitist and racist society that they live in. And this would have provided some character development for Billy, which I felt just wasn't really there.
There's a point in the film where Billy has to question his own position in life and his morals, where Nigel basically tells him either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution, which is very true and still relevant today, as many people question whether they're contributing to the racial oppression of certain minorities, and this is very much evident in this film, as Billy is basically getting away scot-free with doing whatever he wants. Meanwhile, Nigel and his group of friends are constantly being hounded and watched by these racist policemen in this town.
The acting in this, I'd say, was great. I really enjoyed it. I think they played their characters exceptionally well. The girl who plays Virginia, Natalia Dyer, she was in Stranger Things, and her acting in this was impeccable.
I especially want to commend Natalia Dyer for her performance. Her accent was quite believable and she was just incredible at bringing the character of Virginia to life. I felt like she was a real person, a real character. Whether or not she's actually fictional, I don't know, but she did feel very real to me.
I thought that the acting in this film was spectacular actually, and I was really drawn into all of the roles that they all played, but I did feel like there was no real character development from any of the characters really, and I felt like that would have really added another layer of depth to the film.
The film was shot really beautifully. The performances are very solid across the board, and I think what's a key strength of this film is that it doesn't overplay some of the key dramatic moments. It keeps things very grounded and quite raw. I think the portrayal of Tuscaloosa is very authentic. And yeah, I think this film is definitely worth seeking out just for the performances alone, as well as how it manages to capture this era in America really well.
The locations in this film are one thing that really stood out to me, particularly the asylum itself, as it is absolutely beautiful. And the locations such as Nigel's shop as well are beautiful in their own right and help to emphasise the romance of this film, almost becoming a character in themselves.
Despite the heavy topics that are being dealt with, it's a beautifully shot film. The cinematography is really striking. We often have these dreamlike lens flares and long continuous takes with really great use of lighting. Really adds to the vibrant indie aesthetic. There's some really clever shots from a bird's eye view that cut into extreme close-ups of Virginia's face. We as the audience are made to take in every detail of her in the same way that Billy is infatuated by her. And I thought that was a really clever way to make us visually understand their relationship. I found the cinematography of this film to be very airy, flowy, like showy kind of. There was a lot of lens flares, highly texturized piece. Overall I feel like it was like really oversaturized, but I really feel that did represent the 70s really well. The production design is stunning, especially considering that it was made entirely in Minneapolis and not Tuscaloosa where the film is set. We're entirely convinced by the location and the time in which the story takes place.
One thing about this film I didn't particularly like was the pacing. I felt like the film moved quite slowly and that scenes were really dragged out, and it made the film feel quite long even though it was only an hour and a half.
For a directorial debut, it's quite ambitious, but I think that's not a bad sign from a director because it demonstrates their capabilities of tackling all different types of material.
There's a line in the film, "You're either part of the problem or part of the solution." The director is fully aware of the similarities between the story that takes place in the 1970s and events that have taken place over the last few years in America. It's an important and relevant story that will leave you wanting to know more about the characters, but also becomes a great point to engage in the very real issues that are explored in the film.
Overall, I would give the film 3 stars, as I did really enjoy the film, but I felt like I would have liked it a lot more if there was more character development seen, or if there was a heightened clash between the opposing sides of the story both romantically with Billy and Virginia and Billy's dad's opinion on their relationship, and also with the social unrest that's occurring sort of in the background to this romance.
Overall, I'd say this is a good film with quite harsh language. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it's a good watch.
Overall, I think Summer of 72 is a very insightful film. I think it does a great job of balancing both modern and vintage, because we do get a look at how things were back then in a town like Tuscaloosa, but we can also relate to the issues that are being portrayed there to nowadays, like issues that are happening right now. It's very current, and yet it still feels like a blast from the past. It's great.
Overall, I would give this a 4 out of 5.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.